Just when it seemed like Rachel Zegler hadn't offended everyone in the world, one of the world's richest people landed in the picture. And yes, he's ready for a fight. With her antics, Rachel managed to annoy even Elon Musk. And what he did next will leave you feeling some real secondhand embarrassment. Here's how the chaos kicked off. Elon Musk, the tech king, caught wind of Rachel Zegler's Snow White look. It all began with a picture Rachel posted while she was dressed as Snow White. She was styled to resemble Adriana Caselotti, who was the original voice of the character in Disney's 1937 animated film. Zegler shared this tribute on her Instagram, expressing gratitude to Caselotti. And instead of a deep, thoughtful critique or even a shady comment, he dropped a single laughing emoji. But that one little emoji hit harder than 1,000 words. And instantly, it blew up. Over 160,000 people stopped to see what the billionaire had to say. And more than 140 comments poured in like the floodgates had burst into a gasoline pit and walked away. Now let's be real. Elon's comment wasn't some Shakespearean roast, but the timing, tone, and audience made it extremely relatable. It screamed, "I'm not impressed," and that was enough for the internet to run with it. To fans already side-eyeing the remake for its casting and plot changes, Musk's emoji was practically a rallying cry. People took it as a subtle dig, like he was in the group chat but just sent a meme. And given how massive his following is, that laugh echoed across social media, sparking debates, hot takes, and the usual avalanche of keyboard wars. But wait, because just when you think things are calming down, Rachel logs on and does something diabolical. Just one tweet set everything on fire. Now, Rachel's been vocal about her stance on the Free Palestine movement for a while. That wasn't new, but the timing of this post was loaded, because sitting right across the table is Gal Gadot, her co-star, who also happens to be an Israeli citizen and a former IDF soldier. She is someone who has publicly backed her country's military actions. So Rachel's post didn't just make waves, it sent shockwaves through the production. Suddenly, it wasn't just a fairy tale movie anymore, it was political quicksand. Insiders started whispering, and then Variety confirmed it. This was serious enough that producer Mark Platt got on a plane, physically flew from New York just to talk to Rachel in person.
They flew an executive, one of the producers, out to go visit personally with Rachel Zegler to say, could you please take that down? Because we understand you can have your political views, but those aren't really helpful when you're trying to build an audience for a movie. Maybe you could save them for your diary and your friends, but maybe not. Maybe just take the tweet down. And she wouldn't. And then they had to hire a special media consultant for her to follow her around all the time and make sure she didn't continue shitting on Snow White.
You know it's bad when a top-tier Hollywood exec has to land face-to-face instead of sending a strongly worded email. He told her, politely but firmly, to go easy on the political content. Because this wasn't just her Instagram anymore, it was the face of an international Disney product. Her posts weren't just opinions, they were headlines, boardroom meetings, and yes, they were Gal's discomfort on the press tour. Now here's the thing. Elon Musk stands firmly against any anti-Semitic sentiments. Considering Rachel's inclination toward the opposite end of the political spectrum, it's clear why Elon doesn't like the woman. But guess what? Rachel wasn't finished. November 2024 rolled around like a hurricane, and the U.S. election lit every platform on fire. In the middle of all the chaos, Rachel, never one to hold back, posted that she was speechless in the midst of this, and bracing herself for another 4 years of hatred. Dramatic? Absolutely. But then she doubled down. She quoted a now-deleted Tumblr post by musician Ethel Cain, talking about ugly consequences of the election. And then came the sentence that blew the lid off everything. May Trump supporters and Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace. Let that sit for a second, because it was a nuclear-level drama, the kind that makes publicists lose sleep. Conservative Twitter imploded, and boycotts were trending before she could even refresh her page. Trump fans were raging, but the one who really went feral was Megyn Kelly. She got on air, furious, and threw every possible accusation at Rachel, called her a pig, and said Disney should have dumped her like yesterday's leftovers. Plus, of course, she resurrected the ghost of Gina Carano's fire, comparing it like she was building a court case on cable news.
Hello, Disney, you're going to have to redo your film again, because this woman is a pig, and you fired Gina Carano for far less than this nonsense.
Kelly's point was that Disney was playing favorites, that Rachel had said things even Carano hadn't dared to. And yet, here she still was, starring in Snow White. Now, at this point, the backlash was loud, messy, and global. So Rachel finally did what everyone predicted. She pulled the Notes app move. She posted an Instagram story with a white background, black text, and the words, "Hi everyone, I would like to sincerely apologize for the election post I shared on my Instagram last week." Classic. She blamed it on emotions, said it had been a hard week, and wrapped it with that familiar PR bow. respect for differing opinions, and hope for a better tomorrow. But come on, the vibe? It didn't scream, I've reflected. It screamed, my agent made me do this. Now, as you know, Elon Musk is an integral part of President Trump's government. Whoever doubts his administration ultimately doubts Elon, and that might not sit well with him. Rachel just went all in, calling out everybody who was on Trump's side, and that was bound to piss a lot of people off. Elon just happened to be one of them. Then, March 21st, 2025, hit, and Rachel Zegler stirred the pot without even trying. This time, it was a sweet little Instagram carousel, a tribute post to the cast and crew of Snow White. She poured her heart out about how filming the movie defined her early 20s, how she turned 21 on set, lived oceans away from family, and made bonds that would last forever. But guess who was missing? Gal Gadot. She was nowhere to be found. It was like Gal had been magically erased from the memory of Snow White altogether. And of course, fans went into full-on detective mode. Gossip blogs lit up. Was it just an innocent mistake, or was it shade? Because let's not forget, this wasn't just co-star tension. This was a post-political firestorm, with layers of real-world conflict and awkward red carpet moments piled on top. The silence spoke volumes, and the theories came fast. Some swore Rachel was throwing quiet jabs. Others thought maybe Disney told them to pretend everything. But the consensus was that the icy wall between Rachel and Gal was very real. Now, this wasn't the only time Rachel's honesty has been fatal to Disney. She literally roasted the original Snow White into oblivion. So here's the tea. Rachel made headlines when she decided to speak out about the original Snow White. And let's just say, as always, she didn't hold back. She came for the prince, the plot, and the whole someday my prince will come energy. In her eyes, this wasn't just an old cartoon. It was ancient history that needed a serious update. According to her, the love story was kind of creepy, and the prince was basically a stalker. Plus, the original Snow White was sweet in her eyes, but kind of useless.
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love.
Naturally, people had opinions. Some applauded her for giving the fairy tale a modern twist, but others not so much. They thought she was throwing shade at a beloved classic that didn't ask to be dragged. But Rachel wasn't done just yet. At the 2022 D23 Expo, she doubled down on her stance. She said the cartoon screamed 1937 and made it very clear. This new version wasn't about a girl waiting around for some dude to rescue her. Because, as she put it, we didn't do that this time. She kept it cute but blunt. We have a different approach, she said. And the moment she mentioned that people would assume there's a love story just because Andrew Burnap was cast, she was already anticipating the backlash. She even joked all of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby! Weird. That little line didn't go over well. Fans were not amused, especially the traditionalists, who were already Snow White not singing about her dream prince. That's when the claws really came out. Critics lined up on both sides, some cheering for a more independent Snow White, others fuming over what they saw as a full-blown girl boss takeover. And it wasn't just a few salty tweets. The backlash spiraled. People started accusing Rachel of misrepresenting feminism altogether. The internet was suddenly flooded with hot takes, arguing she was pushing this overly corporate version of empowerment, the kind that looks sleek in interviews but flops in reality. Apparently, not everyone wants a crown-wearing CEO Snow White. Some just want their nostalgic fairy tale back. One particularly savage voice in the mix was Ashton Stein, a brand strategist who basically said Rachel's comments screamed zero media training. According to her, Rachel was doing press like someone who missed all the PR prep meetings. Not a good look, especially when you're supposed to be the face of a billion-dollar reboot. And when people started speculating that she actually hated the original film altogether, the theory gained traction fast. But hold on, this drama had legacy connections too, because when David Hand, son of the man who co-directed the original Snow White, heard Rachel's take, he did not take it well. He came out swinging, calling the remake flat out insulting. And just in case that wasn't clear enough, he also said Walt Disney himself would be turning in his grave. And you already know conservative media wasn't about to sit this one out. The Daily Wire jumped into the ring like it was a prize fight. They announced their own Snow White remake. Because why just tweet angry things when you can fund an entire rival movie? Their version, called Snow White and the Evil Queen, was all about bringing back the original vibes, with Brett Cooper slated to play Snow White. Yep, they weren't just challenging Disney, they were throwing down a full cultural gauntlet. But by December 2024, Brett dipped out of the Daily Wire, and the whole project hit a mysterious pause. Since then, there have been no updates, no trailers, no poisoned apples, just a lot of coming soon energy with zero delivery. Now let's circle back to Rachel, because by this point, she was definitely feeling the heat. In October 2024, she finally addressed the backlash in a Variety interview. She tried to clear the air, saying that yes, the movie does still include a love story, despite what her earlier comments might have made people believe. According to her, it was all just a misunderstanding. She said it made her sad that people twisted her words and that some of her jokes didn't land the way she meant them to. It was a classic PR recovery move, the context matters explanation. She wasn't denying what she said, but she wanted people to know it wasn't supposed to sound that harsh. But by then, the internet had already made up its mind. The Rachel Zegler Snow White saga had evolved into a pop culture flashpoint. It was less about the actual movie and more about what the character represented: tradition versus reinvention, love story versus independence, and of course, feminism versus the illusion of feminism. Through it all, Rachel kept doing her thing. Promo appearances, interviews, Insta stories, and even though she tried to soften the narrative, the tension lingered. Some fans stood by her side, others pieced out completely, and everyone else just watched, waited, and memed it all in real time. In the end, the public's reception of Snow White is in front of you, and it's terrible. The movie hit theaters with some serious expectations, but as of April 23rd, 2025, it only pulled in $194.6 million worldwide, with $85.1 million from the US and Canada and $109.5 million from international markets. And considering it needed to hit around $500 million just to break even, it's not the fairy tale ending Disney hoped for. At first, insiders thought it might open big. We're talking $63 to $70 million projections, similar to Maleficent. But by the time opening weekend rolled around, the estimates dropped, and it made a not-so-magical $42.2 million. It led the box office, but barely. By weekend 2, it tumbled 66%, and in week 3, it was already down to 4th place. Critics blamed weak marketing, visuals that didn't click, and the story just not hitting with younger audiences. But we all know that Rachel's constant controversies and her bad image in front of tech giants like Elon was a bit part of it. Review-wise, the film was a total mixed bag. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 40%, Metacritic landed it at 50%. And CinemaScore audiences were kind enough with a B+. Zegler got some praise, and a few people liked her performance, but the dwarfs, the tone, and even Gal Gadot's performance wasn't very popular. Some critics called it Disney's best remake in a decade. Others said it was soulless, awkward, and weirdly preachy. It's safe to say Snow White left audiences divided, with just enough sparkle to keep the gossip going, but definitely not enough to call it a hit.